Excited to have you. So I kind of want to start it off like we spoke over the phone, a little bit into your background and how you became a medium. So I don't know if you want to start from the very beginning.
Sure. So I have been interested in or feeling like I'm a healer, psychic, and medium since I was very young. But I had this wonderful blessing of having a grandmother who was all of those things. And so from a young age, when I became interested in it, she was really willing and wanting to teach me. And so any questions I asked and anything that I wanted to know, she would just talk to me. And we had like the core of our relationship was around that. So I don't ever think that I've had like a typical grandparent. I don't think I've had any typical grandparent at all. And she was probably the one I was closest to, and our relationship was like very much about this work, this stuff. And she didn't live near me, so that was like how I connected with her. And so I just kind of was nurtured in that direction, but also had that interest. So none of the other grandkids are like this.
The difference between a psychic and a medium. Can you kind of go into what both of those are and then the different realms within being a medium?
Sure. So being a psychic is kind of like having a highly developed intuition. Everyone has an intuition. We have our gut feelings, we have those knowings, and when you really work to develop that intuition to a high level, you can often know broader things. You can often know things about other people. You can often know things about the future. You can often understand things about the past around people that you meet. And someone like me that works very hard at developing that psychic gift, they can really read the energy around another person. So when I connect with someone, I'm really seeing them. I'm seeing them. I'm seeing their life. I'm seeing what's going on in their, what I call their field, like their auric field. We all kind of know what that is. But a medium is different. And not everyone is a medium, and not all psychics are mediums. But a medium can connect to a higher plane of spirit than the psychic realm. So I always think of psychic as here on the earth. The energy that is right around someone is what you're seeing or dealing with. Mediumship is dealing with the spirit world. So it's a different level. I know that a lot of people don't like to, think that they live above us. Like there's like a heaven somewhere out there. Like it's like they're right here near us, which I believe too. But I always think about it as a higher place. It's a higher state. And so mediums can actually speak with or hear or see like the minds and the thoughts of spirits that have crossed over. So they can give evidence. They can give clear messages from past loved ones to the people coming to them.
Wonderful. And then do you yourself connect? So you identify yourself as both. And
Definitely.
You connect directly with your spirit guides or just kind of whoever comes around you? How does that work?
So for me, I'm not a person that's like, okay, today I'm working with spirit guide whose name is this person or that whatever. I work with them more through kind of signs and knowings. And sometimes those signs are really subtle. And sometimes they're really overt. So your guides can really lead you in kind of the direction that you want to go, the way that you want them to. So you can say, hey, I need you to show me a big red stop sign if this is not the right direction right now. Or you can say, I just need a little pull to know what's right next. I do have specific guides that are on the other side that were here in life and who I get little signs from. I get little messages that are literally in the physical world. And for a lot of people, they're almost like coincidence or just like, oh, synchronicity. But to me, I'm like, no, I asked them for a message and that's how they're talking to me. I do meditate And I feel that that is key to developing your intuition, or developing a psychic gift, or a psychic ability, I should say. And in meditation, I will say that sometimes I will see, hear, or feel a guide. And sometimes I will see them like as a full-fledged person. Other times I'll see them as an animal. Sometimes I'll see them as like an energy, I guess we'll describe it as, just color or shadow or something that just moves, because I think that our brains try to interpret something the way that we can understand it. So maybe every guide will look like a human, but maybe that's not what they actually are. Like maybe they're an energy that we can't understand. And our brains just want to make sense of it. So yeah, for me, it's like I connect in different ways, but I don't necessarily go into it from a sense of, okay, I'm speaking with X today and he or she is going to tell me this. It's from like a very broad and open, like show me where I'm going kind of a place. And when I'm working with clients and my guides are there, I'm not like, oh, he just told me this, she just told me that. I just talk and everything kind of comes out. So during a reading with someone, I'm really seeing them and I'm really getting visuals around their life and their unfoldment. There came a certain point where it was like, okay, I either need to make the decision to do what I want to do or to keep going from one thing to the next, not feeling very happy. So I used to feel, and I think that many of us do, if we want to live off of the passion that we have, and if we want it to really support us in life and be our bread and butter, we really need to kind of make certain decisions that kind of free us. So I used to feel like, being a psychic, being a medium, being a healer, I couldn't like support myself with that. So the first thing I need to do is go to college. Then I need to get married. Then I need to have a family. Then I need to establish myself in society and save up money. And then when I'm like 55 years old, I can probably have my psychic and healing practice. So I said earlier, if you want something to be your bread and butter, there are certain decisions you have to make that sometimes don't seem very smart. Yeah. So for me this year, in November, I like lost my 6th apartment in 3 years. And I was just like so frustrated. I was like, I'm trying to get a master's degree and I can't even find a stable place to live for a long time and to just be grounded and feel settled and secure. And so when the person asked us to terminate a lease early, which is kind of a big deal to ask someone to do. But I was like, they're asking it because they need something. So I think everyone should be able to benefit in this situation. This is probably for the best. So instead of freaking out and like getting upset like I had in previous circumstances, I was like, what is the best decision I can make for myself? What is the strongest way that I can respond to this situation? Yeah. And what I ended up doing was, immediately the answer that came in was, don't get an apartment. Don't get an apartment. And I was like, but I'm in school. And within 4 days of our landlady asking us to leave, I had signed myself out of school. I had asked a friend if I could live with her, which is a huge thing to ask someone. And I had packed like all of my things and was ready to like put it all in a storage unit and just live with my friend. And I just need a few months to really figure things out, to really decide, how I'm going to run my business so that I can support myself, how I'm going to do my work so that I can actually live and afford my rent and afford food and, life. So it doesn't necessarily seem like a good decision, but what that decision did for me and what it does for other people when they make it, that momentary decision of, can I change my life into what I want it to be? What it did for me is it opened up like the floodgates of like little miracles that are actually kind of big. So I didn't know where I was going to be living, except I said, to a friend, can I live with you for a while? And then I might go to my parents who live 2,000 miles away. And then maybe I can go to other friends' houses. Well, what happened was, I couldn't live with my friend anymore. Her life changed. And then I, for like 2 days was like, oh my gosh, this was a terrible decision. But only 2 days was I thinking that. Then someone else came into my life and they were like, come live with me. And I was like, okay. And so I ended up living in Switzerland with that person. And then I just ended up traveling and just staying with friends and being, I always had a roof over my head and I always believe that I will. And I just know that I'll be okay. And I know that there are people. And I believe in people. I like people. I think they're great. And I just end up in really great situations. And right now I just moved to my parents. So a lot of my like followers on here like know that. I just moved to my parents and I'm really getting settled because I'm traveling for like the rest of the year. So still I'm like not paying rent somewhere. Still I'm not in that situation because that voice said, don't get an apartment. The best way to honor this decision is to not get an apartment. And so now I'm kind of given that universal like oyster that like opens up and says, here's everything that's inside and here's everything that's possible.
About this earlier, it's really about giving up the traditional sense of what success really means. And people usually tie that down to having a home or having a family or having a specific structure, where in this case, you're traveling all over the world. You just came back from Thailand.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. You were in Switzerland, you were in, all over Europe. You're back in the States, you're going to be traveling all over the Midwest and all over the US. So for me, I think that's the true definition of having a successful story. And then on top of that, you're really fulfilling your dreams and you're going after something that you're extremely passionate about and that has been part of your lineage, because I know it's something that your grandmother passed down to you.
Yeah.
So do you want to go into kind of the idea that you had when your grandmother would tell you that she was a psychic or a medium, and kind of the stories or the things that you had to let go to really accept it and then have it integrate and be part of your life?
Sure. So I would say the biggest thing that I had to let go of is what everyone else thinks. And that's a really broad statement, and I mean it to be, because what everyone else thinks comes down to money, relationships, your social stature or your supposed social stature. And it comes down to really the way you make your daily decisions if you let it. So like I said earlier, it was like, I always thought, well, I have to be at least, 55, 60 years old to do this work, because I thought of all the other societal things that you have to do, and that people think maybe like, oh, you'll only be respected if X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. And so as I slowly started to let go of these concepts and these ideas, and it was definitely a process outside of my psychic work as well. My grandma, I also feel that I had to let go of certain ideas that said like, this work can't be successful. This work can only mean like that you're working for other people and kind of for their needs for your entire life, and it doesn't fulfill yours. Because my grandma was a very giving person, and I think that she gave so much that she didn't kind of fill up her own cup. And I just heard this the other day, and it's something that plays in my mind a lot. You can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very, very strong with my own personal boundaries and my own self-care, because I want to make sure that I constantly have that full cup, because that's when I can give back the most and be the best that I can be in what I'm doing.
You said two really interesting things to me. One was figuring out your inner strength. And the other thing is, and I love that you can't pour from an empty cup. What are you doing to fulfill your cup so that then in turn you can continuously give, especially in your line of work where you're constantly having to give and provide for other people? So how do you self-care?
Yeah. So the first thing that I need in my life is meditation. And sometimes that just means going on a walk. But usually it means sitting still in quiet with my own mind because I think something else you said earlier is like, how do I identify my strengths? And how do we do that? It was actually hard for me for a lot of my life to identify that my life was real, that my abilities were real, that what I saw about others was real, and I had to think around it sometimes. I remember thinking to myself sometimes, well, even if I'm delusional, at least I'm happy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, that's not a great belief either, but at least it kind of supported me for a while. And I started to find more validation in actually doing the work. So when I was in acupuncture school, I started a very intense meditation practice. It was over an hour a day, and I did it for a year and 8 months. And it was so intense and so particular to my personal development as a psychic. I don't think I would be at the level I'm at today if I hadn't put those intense hours in. I would say about midway through that, one of my friends found out that I was a healer, and he asked if he could experience my work. And so I was like, yeah, of course. And I literally just like stood behind him in our school and like worked with his energy field. And then I like saw something that was a health issue for him that had been since for most of his life, and that he didn't know the cause of. And he said, this is like the mystery of my life. And he said, and you just pulled it nowhere. And I was like, that's kind of what I can do, you know? And then I worked with him 2 more times. We had like private sessions at his home, and it was treated like a trade. And the second time he worked with me, he kind of got up from the table and he said, I don't understand why you don't actually do this. He said, I should be paying you for this. And I was like, I didn't think about it. And he's someone who is very particular about where he spends his money. And so the fact that he said to me, this is valuable enough that I would pay for it, and he even gave me the number that he would pay, and I was like, no way. It really helped me get to that point where I was like, for so many years, I thought about what everyone else thinks, and I thought about where everyone else goes with their desires. They go, well, I can't have this because, and whether or not you want to monetize whatever dream you have, maybe your dreams are completely different and your job has nothing to do with it. That's great. But for me, it was tied to supporting myself as a career, which brings me to the self-care aspect. So for me, I cannot do this work and have a regular job. I cannot work a 40-hour-a-week job and come home and read someone's energy field for an hour and talk to them. I'm so tired. I get really frustrated. I get mean. I get difficult. And so I know that time for me is very valuable. This is the only work I want to do. I only do kind of one thing at a time. And so for me, it was more about learning what my boundaries are, to find what my self-care is. So everyone has different boundaries. Everyone has different limits and different needs. And so your self-care has to revolve around what you need.
I know that now your practice is primarily online. I know that you have a goal where you want to kind of do 50-50, 50 in-person work and then 50% online. So can you kind of go into what it is that you do? And I know mostly it's through Skype, right?
Yeah. So most of my work is now online because I've been so mobile this year. I've been in Britain for a total of 5 weeks in the past 5 months. I've been in actually 7 weeks. 7 weeks. And then I've been in Switzerland living as my base. And then I went to Thailand for 3 weeks. I've been in Denmark. I've been in France. And finally California last month for about 2.5 weeks. And because I've moved around so much, most of my regular clients are people who know me, have already seen me, or know me through my online work. So my online work is mostly Instagram. That to me is so beautiful because I have this personal goal of working with as many people as possible. And even if it's just once, you know, in their life that they see me, I've just kind of had this as a goal ever since my friend who said I should be paying you for this. He gave me a really high compliment. He said to me, if someone doesn't believe in this work, I would send them to you. And I was like, wow, thank you.
Yeah.
That's so kind, you know? And I also feel that sometimes in the spiritual community, people use a lot of jargon and you lose people. They don't want to hear about their root chakra and their heart chakra and, like, I don't know, spirits in the spirit world. They want to know about their life, and they want to know about where they're going, what they're doing, what they should do, and the decisions that they're making. And so for me, my work revolves around counseling them for the here and now and the future, and also dealing with the past and processing it and using it as lessons. I think that I like to describe my work as a map, as like a roadmap to your life. It's like my favorite way to describe it to people, because that's what I always feel like I'm drawing out with people whenever we sit down and have a call. Some people, I think, would call it coaching. Some people just call it a psychic reading. Some people just are like, oh, I need my tarot reading with you. Great. But it's so adaptable. And the amazing thing with it is whatever I need to say, whatever that person needs to hear comes out in the reading. And it's so individual and so specifically for them that there's no denying that it's for them. And that is the difference between working with like a psychic or working with a very intuitive person than just going to see a psychologist or just going to see a coach. They have their extremely important places. But when you see someone who has a psychic ability or highly intuitive ability, because a lot of coaches, I think, are very intuitive people, very intuitive. They just don't call themselves that. And so they end up having that extra gift that can really get specifically into the person.
Yeah.
I have tarot readings, and those are your whole life right now. And I only recommend those like once every 6 months to a year, because they cover everything. And if you take notes and if you pay attention, that reading will cover everything that you need for quite a while. And I expect people to dig into it. So I'm a demanding tarot reader, and I say, you've got to go home and do the work. You've got to really make use of this information rather than just expecting things to be handed to you. It's not fortune telling. It's not like, oh, you're going to go dig up a treasure tomorrow. It's you've got to literally dig to find your treasure. You've got to figure your things out so that you can be on the best path. But in person, and then the other readings I do are intuitive guidance, and people can get those anytime and about anything. So last week someone said, can I get a reading with you where we just talk about my relationship with someone and how I can work with it? And I was like, yes, because literally you can talk about anything and spirit will come through with all those answers. So the other half of my work that I would like to do more in person, once I get more grounded and settled, my furniture hasn't even come in from LA, is healing work. And healing work is different, but very similar. And I think that my favorite thing about healing work is that it creates this nurturing environment for someone to release what no longer serves them on whatever level they need, and it allows them to feel safe enough to look at something that's hard to look at. So in my life, I've been hit by a car. I've had open heart surgery. I've been in the hospital. I've just had a lot of physical things, and those physical things build up physical traumas in your body, but they also build up psychological ones. And what I found personally is that, for example, Western medicine isn't enough to heal all of that. You often need other things. So for me, I needed a psychotherapist at one point. I needed a healer at another point. I needed my tarot reader. I needed all of these different people to bring this beautiful fusion of healing energies together and make them work.
people are people, no matter what continent you're on. Do you see that there's a commonality or something that you can, for the people that are viewing, give them a tidbit of advice or something that they can implement for themselves or their self-care, that you see that is kind of true to be across the board?
I think the most important thing for people to realize is how much personal power they have. There's so much power inside of our minds that we don't even understand it. And I'm not pretending to understand it, but I have really seen that people who choose to look at a situation differently, to look at their life differently, can change anything that they want to change in their life. It does not matter what it is.
Yeah.
And it's not to diminish the circumstances that anyone is in. It's just to say that we have more power than we think. And the more that we can embrace it, the more that we can support ourselves in the best direction possible. Sometimes that inner strength or that mental strength needs direction. Sometimes it needs help. So it's not to say don't look to others. It's not to say don't get a tarot reading, don't get a healing, don't do this, don't do that. It's to say use your mind the best way that it serves you, and especially to get out of negative modes of thinking that keep you unhappy. We're all dealing with life in the order that we can.
Yeah.
And I have been in extremely dark places in my life, and I think that we all need to be allowed our darkness. But dwelling in darkness and dwelling in negative spaces in your head, they don't take you anywhere good, because they're negative, because they're heavy, because they're difficult. And so you need to work with your mind to navigate the darkness, to get out of it, to find a more healing or a more whole space inside of your head. And so to me, it's just the most important tool we have is our mind and our inner power.
Do you feel like when you started working on yourself, that started affecting the people around you, or you think it kind of started affecting people that weren't necessarily within reach? It was more of an exterior that came in or an interior that came out?
So I kind of align with the idea that your vibration attracts people that are in line with what you're sending out.
Yeah.
And that can mean two things. It can mean, oh, you have a high vibration and you're a happy person, so you'll only attract happy people. Or it could be your vibration right now, you're working on forgiveness. So you're attracting in person after person that you need to forgive. So maybe all of your past lovers are coming back. Maybe anyone that ever hurt you is appearing. And you're like, what's happening? I thought I was raising my vibration and letting things go. Well, the universe is bringing in people for you to let go. As I've seen my family become more patient, kind of better listeners, or better, because I'm not saying they were bad, but they've grown. And I think that your family is one of the biggest measurements of where you are on your spiritual growth, because we all have that experience where you have Christmas family gathering, and the worst parts of you come out, and the worst things that you think or feel or want to say, they all come roaring out at family gatherings, because our families trigger the deepest issues, I guess, that we have, and the most sensitive and fragile parts of ourselves. And so when your family is healing, I think that you're really seeing kind of a confirmation around your own growth and your own vibrational changes.
It's so true. And you said something that really resonated with me, and it's that people really are mirrors. And sometimes when we meet someone or see a particular trait that really annoys us, or that we say, gosh, why does this person behave that way? And it only resonates with us because it's something that we don't like about ourselves, but don't necessarily see. And so you start healing and then doing the work yourself, that it no longer starts being present. And then
Yeah.
once that happens, then everything else kind of falls into place. And to me, what I got from what you were saying was that you really did the work and became self-assured and really understood your personal power and accepted. And I know that you don't like to refer it as a gift, but accepted your natural ability to understand people. And that's really, really powerful, because if people were to just kind of sit back and say, this is who I am and this is what makes me special, and that's perfectly okay, and I'm going to own it and I'm going to use it and apply it to my life and really believe it, because that's the key, right? Because to me, it sounded like as soon as you started really believing, Tara, then your family started believing, and then your friends started believing, and then all of these doors started opening up for you, and you really were able to go into that you wanted to go into. But that didn't actually start happening until you decided, okay, this is real, and this is something that I want for myself.
Yeah, definitely. You're a great listener.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to also go into maybe, I don't know, tips that you have for someone that's kind of going through the same journey and they're going through the self-discovery. Other than meditation, something that you feel like they can physically implement into their lives, because I understand that meditation is extremely powerful, but it can also be something that's intangible, right? And sometimes people need to tangibly feel something before they can go into that intangible thing. So what are physical things or tips that you can give someone that they can apply when they're trying to shift and move into a new segue into their life?
Yeah. So I think my favorite thing to do and to tell other people to do whenever there's uncertainty but desire around something, because that's when we become clouded, right? Because we really want something, so we almost like convince ourselves that something isn't real, because how could it be? Because we really want it, like that's too good to be true kind of thinking. My favorite thing is to ask for very small but very specific signs from the universe. And I use that word because I think whatever we call like the powers that are around us, I think it doesn't matter. But I think we can ask for something very small, but to appear repeatedly and to be something that really drives home that what we're thinking or what we're wanting or where we're wanting to go is right for us. And if I can give you a quick story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I love hearing your stories.
Oh, thank you. Well, this one is about a friend, so I hope I can do it justice.
Okay.
So I met this wonderful person 2 years ago on an amazing trip to Sedona. And he was telling me his story of getting sober. And he was telling me how what would happen to him was, like, he would, say to the universe, he would say to, I think he calls it God, okay? He would say to God, like, I think I don't want to do this anymore. I think I want to get really clean. I think I want to actually commit to this. And, I can't do this by myself. And so what would happen to him, he says, is repeatedly, drugs wouldn't work. Repeatedly.
Wow.
People would appear who would specifically say, and often they would never remember talking to him. They would say, "You're not supposed to do this anymore." And he would just be like, "What?" And he said once,
I'm sorry, people that were doing the drug with him, like they were partaking.
Yes.
Wow.
One of them was a roommate, and the roommate never remembered saying this. And he said, "No, you said to me you weren't supposed to do this anymore, and you wouldn't let me have any." And he was like, "Oh my God, like this is God, this is an intervention that is not with people, but like with a force, And then the final thing for him was pennies. Okay. I'm really obsessed with pennies from heaven, because the first significant person in my life that I lost started leaving me pennies. And I found a penny on my walk this morning in the most unlikely place when I was having the most unlikely thought that was related to this person. And that is how it happens. It happens in specific moments that you just, it's like uncanny, right? You're like, there's no way this is happening. So that's how you do that. You ask for those specific signs, you ask for that specific information. And he had asked the question, and then things would come up. And for him, the person leaving him pennies, I can't remember why they were important to him, but he knew that that was part of their message. And every little thing that would happen, it would just happen over and over again. And he would just be so freaked out. He was like, okay, it's really time. And he found this inner strength to where just I think he said he woke up at like 6 o'clock in the morning. He had tried to take drugs earlier in the night. Nothing happened. He sat there and he was like, I just took so much and I'm not feeling anything. Yeah. And it freaked him out, but it gave him this resolve. He was like, this is spirit. And he told his friend, here's everything I have. Here are the keys. I'm leaving right now. And he called the one person that was closest to him, who was like an aunt, and he drove straight, his aunt met him. He said, I'm ready. Come get me though, because I need help. You know, like I can't do any more on my own except make this decision. And to me, it was just the most magical story because it's the most intense of circumstances, and spirit still appeared. Like he wasn't necessarily even in a clear mindset, and spirit made his mind clear enough to hear and to see. So a very, very long story short, I just think we need to remember that there is something else. Even if we don't want to pinpoint it, even if we don't want to call it anything in particular, there is something else around us that helps us and supports us and guides us. Even if we just want to believe it's Google, fine. Like, you know, maybe you'll turn on your phone and see the same alert around a certain item multiple times, and you'll be like, this is the sign. Good for you. Like, let Google be your guide. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever it may be, energy is energy, and whatever you choose to define it, then it's perfect. It's uniquely yours. If you don't mind, an idea popped into my head. So maybe we can set an intention for the people that are viewing, and I'll kind of let your spirit, whatever you feel that intention should be for our viewers, and then we can kind of set the note for them from here on out, moving forward. I don't know. Is that?
So I do a lot of live streams on my channel, and there's always something that just comes in, and usually I'm just talking. So I think that's a great idea, and I can just talk and something will come forward.
Okay.
So what I'm feeling for the people here right now is that there are a lot of people that need to be more creative in the way that they're living their life. I feel like a lot of people here are feeling really stuck, and it's in a very it's in a monotonous way. They're tired of like the rhythm that they're in. And I'm feeling that if they just add in a little bit of literal creativity, maybe just waking up a little bit earlier in the morning to do something particular, like how this morning I woke up an hour and a half before my alarm and went on a beautiful walk, and I saw a deer in the middle of the creek, and like it just changed my entire day and my entire perspective, because it was like this little extra magic I wouldn't have had if I hadn't added that element by accident. And I'm feeling that it would just be really amazing for everyone to just set an intention to walk forward with more creativity, whatever that means to them. That could mean actually creating things. It could mean living in a different way. It could be, you know, making the bed for your partner because you don't usually do it, and you'll surprise them and they'll be so happy. And like, that's a really creative, tiny little extra that changes your day and your experience with someone else.
And Tara, if you want to just everybody know where they can reach you, your website, I'm going to also make sure that once we end, I'll add all of her information.
Sure. So my favorite platform is Instagram, and you guys can find me at Yintrospection, my name here above. I'm also on Facebook, but not quite so much. Not quite so active on there. I do live streams a lot on my Instagram. You can catch me on my website at taraalexandria.com. You can book tarot readings, intuitive guidance sessions online with me. And if anyone is watching that's in Kentucky or Ohio, you can book in-person sessions. It always has my location on the website, so I change it based on where I go.
Thank you so much for doing this with me. And thank you to
Thank
everybody
you.
who tuned in.